I want to talk about something that could happen to any of you. Seriously, look at your phone right now. Look at the camera lens staring back at you. We all make jokes about it, don't we? We joke that Big Brother is watching. We joke that the algorithm knows us better than we know ourselves. But let me ask you a question. What happens when the algorithm isn't a faceless corporation? What happens when the Big Brother watching your every move is sitting across from you at the Christmas dinner table, smiling and asking if you want more gravy? My name is Naomi, and for the last 5 years, Christmas hasn't been a holiday for me. It has been a psychological horror movie wrapped in red and gold ribbon. If you think your family drama is bad day, if you think your mother law making a passive aggressive comment about your weight is bad, just wait. Because my story involves a black velvet box, a perfect stepmother, and a secret so dark it destroyed an entire family in one night. Let's go back to the beginning. 5 years ago, my father remarried. Her name is Elena. On paper, Elena is perfect. You know the type. She is a Pinterest mom come to life. She's 40-5 but looks 30-5. Thanks to a very expensive dermatologist and a diet that consists mostly of kale and judgment. She posts photos of her perfect life on Instagram 3 times a day. Blessed. Family first. Christmas magic. But behind that filtered smile, Elena is cold. Clinical. She treats family members like employees she's trying to manage. I was the employee she couldn't control. I didn't live in their massive, sterile mansion. I had my own apartment in the city. I had my own job as a graphic designer. And Elena hated that. She hated that she didn't know where I was every second of the day. The terror started subtly. It started with the gifts. Our family has a tradition. Every Christmas Eve, we gather at my dad's house. 12 feet tall, decorated with ornaments that cost more than my car. And every year, hidden deep in the branches, there is a small black velvet box with my name on it. No tag saying who it's from. Just my name, Naomi. The first year, I opened the box and found a vintage fountain pen. A specific brand. A specific model from 1950. Now, to anyone else, this was just a nice gift. But my blood ran cold. Why? Because 3 nights before Christmas, I had been up at Lenum deep diving into a random Wikipedia rabbit hole about vintage calligraphy. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't posted about it. I hadn't even bought anything. I just looked at it on my laptop screen in the privacy of my dark bedroom. And 3 days later, there it was. Wrapped in a bow. Elena smiled at me from across the room. Do you like it, sweetie? I just had a feeling. Right. The 3rd year was worse. Much worse. I was dealing with some childhood trauma, specifically about a fear of drowning I had developed when I was 7. I had never told my dad. It was strictly confidential, discussed only behind soundproof doors in a medical office. My hands shook as I untied the ribbon. Was a beautiful, antique silver locket, and engraved on the front was a wave. An ocean wave crashing down. I almost threw up right there on the Persian rug. I looked at Elena. She was sipping her champagne, her eyes locking onto mine with a predator's focus. It represents overcoming fear. She whispered, How? How did she know? I tried to tell my dad. Dad, she knows things, I said. Things I haven't told anyone. He laughed it off. Oh, Naomi, don't be dramatic. Elena is just very intuitive. She pays attention. You should be grateful someone cares that much. That's one word for it. Which brings us to this year. 2 days ago. Christmas Eve. I was driving out to their estate in the suburbs. The snow was falling heavy, big wet flakes hitting my windshield. My wipers were slapping back and forth lathe. Thwack, thwack. Thwack like a metronome counting down to a disaster. I had a knot in my stomach the size of a fist. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Dad, Dr. Safe. Kiddo. Elena has made everything perfect. Don't be late. Try to be happy this year. Try to be happy. As if my anxiety was a choice. As if the feeling of being watched was just a mood swing. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that maybe, just maybe, this year would be normal. Maybe I would get a gift card. Maybe we would just eat turkey and talk about the weather. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. Because what was waiting for me in that house wasn't just a nosy stepmother. It was a surveillance state. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked like something out of a magazine. Every window was glowing with warm, yellow light. Wreaths on every door. Icicle lights dripping from the roofline with mathematical precision. It was beautiful, and it felt completely fake. Like a movie set where, if you leaned on a wall, it would fall over. I parked my beat-up Honda next to Elena's pristine white Range Rover. The contrast wasn't lost on me. I took a deep breath, checked my makeup in the rearview mirror hiding the dark circles under my eyes, and stepped out into the cold. The air smelled of wood smoke and pine. I walked up the steps and rang the doorbell. Ding-dong. Even the doorbell sounded expensive. The door swung open instantly, and there she was. She was wearing a long red velvet dress that hugged her figure. Her hair was in a perfect chign, not a strand out of place. She looked like the queen of a country that executed people for bad table manners. Naomi, she squealed. It was a high-pitched, performative squeal. She pulled me into a hug. She smelled of expensive perfume, something heavy, like roses and old money and rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer. Of course. Elena didn't touch people without sanitizing first. Merry Christmas, Elena, I said, my voice tight. You look, she said, pulling back and scanning my face. It wasn't concern. Have you been sleeping? Your skin looks dehydrated. I have a cream for that. I'll put it in your stocking. I'm fine, I lied. Just work. Lots of deadlines. Work, 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 she said, closing the heavy oak door behind me. The sound of the latch clicking shut echoed in the foyer. Click. It sounded like a prison cell locking. Well, leave the world behind, Elena said, gesturing to a basket on the entry table. You know the rules. The basket. I hated the basket. Digital detox. She called it. Every Christmas, Elena insisted that we all put our phones in a basket at the door. She claimed, to control us, I thought. I reluctantly pulled my phone out of my pocket. I turned it off. I dropped it into the basket next to my dad's phone. Now I was cut off. No texting friends for support. No checking social media to distract myself. Just me, them, and the house. I walked into the living room. My dad was there, mixing a drink at the bar cart. He looked older this year, more tired. His hair was thinning, and his shoulders were slumped, even in his festive sweater. Naomi. He beamed when he saw me. The relief in his eyes was heartbreaking. He needed me here as a buffer. He needed a third person to dilute the intensity of Elena's perfectionism. Hey, Dad. I hugged him. He squeezed me tight. Thanks for coming, he whispered in my ear. I wouldn't miss it. I lied again. The room was suffocating light decorated. There wasn't a single empty surface. Candles, nutcrackers, porcelain villages. The fireplace was roaring. Bing Crosby was crooning White Christmas from hidden speakers. It was sensory overload. Dinner in 20 minutes. Elena announced from the kitchen. I made your favorite, Naomi. Truffle risotto. My favorite. I stopped. I had only tried truffle risotto for the first time 2 weeks ago. At a restaurant in the city. I hadn't told Dad. I hadn't posted it. So how did she know it was my favorite? A chill went down my spine, colder than the wind outside. I looked at the Christmas tree in the corner. It was magnificent. 10 feet tall, covered in golden crystal ornaments. And underneath it, nestled among the piles of grandiose gifts, I saw it. The small, black velvet box, sitting there like a spider waiting for a fly. I felt a wave of nausea. I wanted to grab my coat and run, but I couldn't, because Elena walked into the room carrying a tray of appetizers, and her eyes went straight to mine. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I hope you're hungry, she said. We have a long night ahead of us. We sat down for dinner. The conversation was painful. Elena dominated everything. She talked about her charity work. She talked about the neighbors' tacky decorations. She asked me intrusive questions about my job. Are you still at that agency? The one on Sth Street? Yes. Do you think they appreciate you? I saw their stock dropped 3 points last week. I froze. How did she know which agency? How did she know their financial status? I'm fine, Elena. Just looking out for you, she said, stabbing a piece of asparagus. My dad ate in silence, nodding along, too afraid to interrupt her monologue. He was a hostage in his own home. I looked at him, silently begging him to see what I saw. She is crazy, Dad. She is obsessed. But he just poured himself another glass of wine. Finally, dinner ended. My stomach was in knots. Time for presents. Elena clapped her hands. This was it. The moment of truth. We moved to the living room. We sat on the plush sofas. Elena handed out the gifts. A tie for Dad. Obviously. A cashmere scarf for me. It was nice, actually. A diamond bracelet for Elena from Dad. She acted surprised, even though I saw the receipt on his desk weeks ago. The pile dwindled. The wrapping paper littered the floor. And then, there was only one thing left. The black box. Elena walked over to the tree. She picked it up delicately. She walked over to Ming. The room went silent. Even Bing Crosby seemed to pause. For you, Naomi, she said softly. Open it. My hands were trembling. I took the box. The velvet felt like sandpaper against my skin. I looked at my dad. He was smiling encouragingly. Go on, honey. I took a deep breath. I lifted the lid. Inside the box, resting on a cushion of black satin, was a watch. Not an antique this time. Not a creepy locket. It was a smartwatch. Top of the line. The kind with the titanium casing that costs more than my rent. The screen was black, sleek, and cold. Oh, wow, my dad said, leaning in. That's a generous gift, Elena. Very modern. Elena smiled, sipping her wine. I thought it was time Naomi upgraded. She needs to stay connected. The word hung in the air like a threat. I took the watch out. It felt heavy in my hand. Turn it on, Elena urged. I set it up for you already, just to be helpful. I pressed the side button. The screen flickered to life. The logo appeared. Then it loaded the home screen, and that's when my heart stopped beating. That's when the room started to spin. The wallpaper, the background image on the watch face. It wasn't a stock photo of a mountain or a beach. It was a photo of me. But it wasn't a photo I had posted on Instagram. It wasn't a photo from a family gathering. It was a photo of me sitting on my kitchen floor, wearing my old oversized hoodie holding a pint of ice cream, crying. I remembered that moment. It was 3 nights ago. I had a bad day at work. I sat on the floor and cried. I was alone in my apartment. My curtains were drawn. My door was locked. The only eye in the room was the webcam on my laptop, which was open on the coffee table. I stared at the tiny screen. The image was grainy, low-minus light, digital noise. But it was undeniably me. It was a stolen moment of vulnerability. And now, it was glowing on my wrist in my father's living room. I looked up at Elena. She wasn't looking at the watch. She was looking at me. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, studying my reaction. She was feeding on my fear. She was waiting for me to scream, to cry, to make a scene so she could call me unstable in front of Dad. She wants me to break, I realized. She wants to prove that I'm the crazy one. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. I forced the muscles in my face to relax. I turned off the screen. "Thank you," I said. My voice was robotic, very high resolution. Elena's smile faltered for a microsecond. She was disappointed. She wanted tears. "You're welcome, dear. It tracks everything. Heart rate, sleep location, everything." "I need to use the restroom," I said, standing up abruptly. "I feel a bit dizzy. Maybe the wine," Dad said, concerned. "Splash some water on your face." I walked out of the living room. My legs felt like jelly. I walked into the hallway, past the kitchen, into the powder room. I locked the door. I turned on the faucet to drown out any sound. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. My pupils were dilated. How? I asked myself. How did she get that photo? Then it hit me. The fountain pen from the search history. The locket from the therapy session. The truffle risotto from the credit card statement. The photo from my webcam. She wasn't a psychic. She was a hacker, or at least, she hired one. She used parental control software. Software she probably installed years ago when I asked her to fix my laptop because it was running slow. "Elena, let me help you." "Sweetie, I'm good with computers." I had handed her the keys to my entire life. I looked at the watch in my hand. It wasn't a gift. It was a dog collar. She was tagging me. Rage. Pure, hot. White rage flooded my system. It burned away the fear. I wasn't going to cry in the bathroom. I wasn't going to let this psycho win. I unlocked the bathroom door. I didn't go back to the living room. I looked at the stairs leading to the second floor. Elena and Dad were downstairs, drinking coffee, watching It's a Wonderful Life. The music was loud. They wouldn't hear me. It was time to see what else the perfect mother was hiding. I took off my shoes. I carried them in my hand. I crept up the carpeted stairs. The house was huge, but old houses settle. Every step was a gamble. Creak. I froze. Downstairs, I heard Elena laugh. "You're so funny." They hadn't heard me. I reached the second floor landing. It was dark up here. The hallway stretched out like a tunnel. At the end of the hall was Elena's home office. She called it her sanctuary. We were never allowed in there. "I have sensitive charity documents," she would say. "I need privacy for my writing." I walked down the hall. The door was closed. I reached for the handle. It was cold brass. Locked. Of course it was locked. Elena didn't leave things to chance. I looked around. Think, Naomi. Think. Where does a control freak hide a key? Not under the mat. That's amateur. Above the door frame? No. To dust I looked at the decorative table next to the door. There was a vase with fake hydrangeas, and a small porcelain bowl filled with potpourri that smelled like dead roses. I dug my fingers into the dry leaves. Nothing. I checked the drawer. Then I remembered. Elena was an narcissist. She hid things where she could see them. Next to the door was a framed photo. It was a photo of Elena and Dad on their wedding day. She looked triumphant. He looked dazed. I lifted the frame. There, taped to the back of her own smiling face, was a small silver key. "Gotcha," I whispered. I unlocked the door. Click, I pushed it open. The room smelled of ozone and electricity. It was cold. The only light came from the LED strips behind her desk. It looked less like an office and more like the cockpit of a spaceship. 3 monitors. A massive server are humming on the floor. This wasn't a charity work setup. This was a command center. I sat in her ergonomic chair. I moved the mouse. The screens woke up. Bright blue light flooded the room, stinging my eyes. Password prompt. Okay. This was the hard part. What would Elena choose? A birthday? Too simple. Password Yarson, too risky. I looked around the desk. Sticky notes everywhere. Call caterer, order dry cleaning, review George's bank statement. Wait. George's bank statement? Why would she need to review Dad's statement? I tried a few passwords. Perfection. Incorrect. Incorrect. Family first. Incorrect. I thought about Elena. What did she love most in the world? Herself. But specifically, her image. I looked at the sticky note again. Review George's bank statement. The handwriting was sharp-jagged. Elena is queen. Then I saw it. Under the keyboard mat. A tiny corner of paper sticking out. I pulled it. It was a list of IP addresses. And at the top, written in red ink, Master Pass 1985 Vogue the year, she was featured in a local magazine. Her peak moment. God, she was pathetic. I typed it in. 1.9.8.5.5 V- so minus G minus U minus C. Enter. ICCESSGRINTED. My breath hitched. The desktop appeared. It wasn't cluttered. It was organized with military precision. Folders lined up perfectly. And the names of the folders made my stomach churn. FLDE are George Dad, FOLDE are the neighbors, FLDE are charity board, and there it was. FOLD or NAOMI-P are OJ. ECTUNGRATFUL. I clicked it. I expected photos. Maybe some emails. I wasn't prepared for the scale of it. Sub- folders organized by year. Arling Ardian, Arling Ardia, Arling Arsen. I opened current month. There were audio files. File name therapy session deck Shar. Phone call with Mom Nov Arsh. Then she was recording my calls. There were screenshots. My bank account balance. My Inder messages. My drafts of emails I never sent. She knew everything. She knew I was broke last month. She knew I was lonely. She knew I hated her risotto. I felt violated. I felt like I was naked in the middle of Times Square. This wasn't just nosy. This wasn't criminal. This was stalking. I reached for my phone to take a picture. Then I remembered. My phone was in the basket downstairs. Damn it, I hissed. I needed to get this data out. I looked for a USB drive. Elena had a jar of them on her desk. I grabbed one. I plugged it in. I started copying the NAOMI folder. The progress bar appeared. 10%, 20%. It was moving too slow. The files were huge. Audio takes up space. While it copied, I looked at the other folders. I couldn't help it. I clicked on FOLDE or ELENAPRSONAL. Maybe I could find something to use against her. I opened it. And suddenly the predator became the prey. Because Elena had secrets too. Big ones. The folder wasn't full of charity work. It was full of screenshots of online casinos. Bet 365, poker stars. Crypto wallet. Oh my god. The losses. 减15 000减50 000减12 000. She wasn't managing Dad's money. She was bleeding him dry. And there was a Word document. Title The Idiots I Live With. I opened it. It was a blog draft. An anonymous blog she ran called Suburban Hell. I started reading. My husband George is a spineless worm. He believes anything I tell him. Today I told him the new car costs a shike. It cost ba shike. He didn't even check. My stepdaughter Naomi is a pathetic failure. She thinks she's an artist. She's just a waste of space waiting for an inheritance I've already spent. I stared at the screen. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Cold and steady. She hated us. She was stealing from us. And she was laughing about it. Copying. 98%, 99%. Complete. I pulled the USB drive out. I put it in my pocket. It felt hot against my leg. Like a live coal. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps. Naomi? Are you okay up there? Panic. I quickly closed the windows. I locked the computer. I grabbed the key from the desk. I ran to the door. I locked it from the outside. I put the key back behind the picture frame. I smoothed my hair. I opened the bathroom door across the hall and flushed the toilet, just as Dad reached the top of the stairs. Naomi? I stepped out of the bathroom, wiping my hands on my pants. I'm here, Dad. Sorry. Stomach issues. He looked relieved. We paused the movie for you. Elena made hot cocoa. I looked at him. The spineless worm she called him. My poor, sweet, oblivious dad. I said, I have a surprise for everyone. A special Christmas presentation. He smiled. Really? Yes, I said, fingering the USB drive in my pocket. Let's go downstairs. I walked back into the living room. The scene was picturesque. The fire was crackling. The tree lights were twinkling. Elena was sitting on the sofa, holding a mug of cocoa with 2 perfectly placed marshmallows. She looked up as I entered. Sweetie, she asked. Her voice was dripping with fake sympathy. She was probably already planning how to listen to my therapy recording about this stomachache later tonight. Much better, I said. I walked over to the massive 85-inch smart TV mounted above the fireplace. It was currently displaying a fireplace loop. Elena, Dad, I started, standing in front of the screen, like I was giving a TED talk. I know I haven't been the easiest stepdaughter. I know I'm distant. Dad looked hopeful. Elena looked suspicious, but intrigued. Narcissists love being addressed. So, I continued, I wanted to make up for it. While I was upstairs, resting, I put together a little digital scrapbook, a celebration of our family. Specifically, a celebration of everything Elena has done for us. Elena's eyes lit up. Flattery, her kryptonite. Oh, Naomi, she gushed, putting her mug down. That is so thoughtful. George, look, she made us a video. That sounds wonderful, Dad said, settling back into his armchair. I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. It felt heavy, like a grenade. I plugged it into the side of the TV. The screen flickered. A menu appeared. Ready? I asked. Ready? I pressed play. Slide a photo of us from last Christmas. Everyone smiling. AWW, Elena cooed. Slide a photo of Dad and Elena in Paris. We looked so young there, Dad laughed. Slide sci photo of the house decorated beautifully. I really did outdo myself that year, Elena noted. I paused the slideshow. My thumb hovered over the next button. I looked at Elena. You really do capture everything, Elena. Everything, she nodded, confused by my tone. I do try. But sometimes, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, you see too much. I pressed the button. Slide 4. It wasn't a family photo. It was a screenshot. Specifically, a screenshot of the PROJECTUNGR8TFULF older structure. The room went quiet. What is that? Dad squinted. Files? Her smile didn't drop, it just stiffened. Like cheap plastic. Slide with a webcam photo of me crying on my kitchen floor. The one on the watch. But this time it was blown up on an 85-inch screen. You could see the pixels of my tears. Naomi, Dad asked, his voice shaking. Where did this come from? I said, pointing at Elena without looking away from the screen. It's just art. Elena stammered. Slide Leo the audio file list. Therapy session deck shar. Himpi and Dad bank call no vu. Sen she records us. Dad, I said calmly. She listens to my therapy sessions. She listens to your calls with your broker. She has a microphone in this room right now. Elena stood up. Turn it off. She hissed. Her voice wasn't high-pitched anymore. It was a growl. Turn it off right now. George, make her stop. She hacked me. Hacked you? I laughed. You left the key behind your own photo, you narcissist. Slide see the gambling debts. 减15 000 to crypto bet. The bank statement showing the transfers from George's retirement fund. Dad stood up. He walked closer to the TV. He put his glasses on. 50,000? He whispered. Elena, you said the market crashed. You said we lost that money in the recession. I can explain. Elena was backing away now. It's an investment. It's high risk, high reward. And here is the grand finale, I said. I clicked one last time. Slide by the blog post. The idiots I live with. I read it out loud. My husband George is a spineless worm. He believes anything I tell him. Silence. Ringing silence. The only sound was the crackling fire and the hum of the hard dock drive. Dad turned around. His face was red. Veins were bulging in his neck. I had never seen him angry. He was a gentleman. A passive man. But everyone has a breaking point. Being called a worm while being robbed of your retirement. That was his. He looked at Elena. He didn't scream. He didn't hit her. He just walked over to the basket in the hallway. He took his phone out. He turned it on. Get out, he said. Please, she fabricated it. She's jealous. Grabbing his arm, he shook her off. Get? I'm calling my lawyer. And then I'm calling the police. Recording people without consent is a felony, Elena. Elena looked at me. Her mask was gone. Her face was twisted in pure, ugly hatred. You little brat, she spat. I gave you everything. I tried to fix you. You didn't fix me, I said, pulling the USB drive out of the TV. You just gave me the evidence. Elena left that night. She didn't pack a bag. Dad made her leave with just the clothes on her back and her car keys. He sat on the sofa, staring at the blank EV screen for a long time. I sat next to him. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. The house felt different. It was quieter. But for the first time in 5 years, the silence didn't feel like it was listening. I looked at the black velvet box on the coffee table. The smartwatch was still inside. I picked it up. I walked to the fireplace. Naomi, don't, Dad said weakly. That's expensive. It's not a gift, Dad, I said. I threw it into the fire, the plastic melted. The screen cracked. The lithium battery sizzled and popped. It smelled toxic, but it smelled like freedom. I drove home that night with my windows down, letting the freezing air numb my face. My phone buzzed. I flinched. Old habits die hard. But it wasn't a notification from a tracker app. It was a text from Dad. Thank you. Love you. S. Changing the locks tomorrow. I smiled. I took a piece of black electrical tape from my glove box, and I taped over it. So, here is my advice to you. Enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy the gifts. But if you find a box under the tree with no name on it, if you get a gift that knows a little too much about you, don't say thank you. Ask questions. Because the person smiling at you from across the dinner table might not be looking at you. They might be looking through you. Merry Christmas, and stay offline.